say.
Welcome to Mornings with Stephen Jardine. Thanks for your company this Thursday, the 1st of February. We have made it through January. Well done us. Coming up on the phone-in, your reaction to Nicola Sturgeon's evidence to the UK COVID inquiry yesterday. Call 08085 92 95 00 or you can text 80295. Also coming up between now and noon.
Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down, never gonna run around and desert.
80s icon, comeback king Rick Astley is here to talk about making new music and fame and success the second time around. And do you have a question you'd like to put to a GP? Our weekly health surgery is here with our resident GP, Dr. Poonam Krishan. She's here to answer all your health questions for you or a loved one. No need for an appointment here. All you have to do is text us, 80295, or drop us an email, stephen@bbc.co.uk. And
And don't tell them nothing, baby. You know that I'm coming, baby. Just hit up my phone whenever you need you some company. Got this drink in my cup.
are we paying too much these days for high street cups of coffee? And can you save money by making it just as well at home? We've got top tips coming up for you. Plus,
I went to the doctors. I said, "Hey, doctor, how you doing?" I said, it didn't," and he went, like that. He knew right away what I was talking about.
it affects about half of men over the age of 40. But does impotence need a menopause moment?
This category is known as
Mornings on BBC Radio Scotland.
Listen on BBC Sounds.
To put out my favorite part, I am dying in the way. Take a look at Eiffel Towers, never trusting their lies. Sipping lemon yellow booze, only dancing to blues. All dressed up on wedding day, keep on tripping it away. I am myself, I'm not myself, I'm not dead and I'm not for sale. So keep your bankroll on reach your Sunday death. Fake the heat and scratch your edge, skinned up knees and soft lips. I'll breathe the life, fix paper life, and when you end up with the light, let go, it's hard holding on. One more trip and I'll be gone. So keep your head up, keep it on, just a whisper of your own. Take a breath and make it big. It's the last you'll ever get. We'll break your leg with diamond rings. It's the last you'll ever choose. I am myself, I'm not myself. I'm not dead and I'm not for sale. Hold me closer, closer, let me go. Let me be, just let me be. I am myself, I'm not myself. I'm not dead and I'm not for sale. So keep your bankroll on reach your Sunday death.
And on a Thursday morning now, it's not often a musician gets two chances at fame and success. more than 30 years apart. Rick Astley shot to fame in the 80s with Stock Aitken and Waterman, selling 40 million records worldwide. But 4 decades on, he's back with a bang again, storming Glastonbury last summer and fronting the BBC's New Year coverage in London last month. And he's about to kick off a tour and come to Scotland with his brand new album, Are We There Yet? Rick Astley, morning.
Morning. How you doing?
Good to have you with. You're in the car this morning talking to us. Were you rocking along to Whitney there? Did you like that?
I was rocking on to Whitney. That's the longest ending of a song ever. I was patiently waiting here for you to start chatting to me. But I love a bit of Whitney, by the way. But that was the longest ending of a song I've
Yeah,
ever
sorry,
heard.
but we were still trying to sort out the Zoom to you. I think that's what was behind it. Anyway, listen.
Yeah.
So, 9th studio album. Are we there yet? What's the story? What's it all about?
Well, it's a couple of things. Are we there yet? Can obviously mean a lot of things for a lot of people. We've all been there with someone in the back of the car, usually kids, kind of like kicking the back seat, sort of saying, are we there yet? Are we there yet? And that kind of applies to the fact that I did a tour in America with a bunch of guys from like the 80s and 90s, 2002 that was. And we did 22,000 miles right across America. In fact, we zigzagged across America a few times, like 56 dates we did. And we kept going to our bus driver, are we there yet? And it just became this kind of like daily joke thing. And then when I got home and started thinking about making a record, a lot of the sounds that I'd been hearing in America, old and new, you know, a lot of old ones for sure, I just ended up putting more twang in the guitar, I think. And but what it also means is, are we there? Am I there as a person, as a human? You know, what point do you think, yeah, I've done it, I'm sorted? And I've come to realise there's always another horizon every morning. Do you know what I mean? So,
When you were on that tour bus with those guys who'd shared that success first time around with you, Rick, what they used to talk about?
well, to be honest, we were all on different tour buses because one of the crazy things was my wife and I said, look, we want to see America. We don't just want to wake up outside an arena because we've been on a bus overnight and slept on it. And to be honest, after like 5 or 6 nights of sleeping on a bus, I don't sleep very well. I can do the first few nights and then I just wake up the whole time. So we had the joy of actually driving through Wisconsin. We had the joy of driving through, you know, Nevada and the desert, the mountains, the everything. I did hang out with the guys a bit and we had drinks sometimes and stuff. And, you know, we all went to see the Tom Cruise, what do you call it, movie, the second part of Top Gun and things like that. We had a bit of a giggle here and there, and we had a great time on stage every night. But we didn't really travel together. So it was kind of a bit ships in the night where you just kind of arrive and you go, right, you know, 45 minutes and we're on stage kind of thing. But it was a great time. We just loved it.
So there wasn't some massive beef with Flock of Seagulls or anything like that?
No, it was actually, to be honest, it was New Kids on the Block. It's their kind of tour and they have invited guests and I got lucky to be invited in 2022. And yeah, it's a kind of a mad show because on the one end, and I've done loads of gigs that, you know, would be regarded as nostalgia, retro, whatever you want to call them. But the truth of it is people of an age, and not even, you know, there was some younger people coming to these gigs, to be honest, but people of an age want to hear you just do your hits. They're not really interested in a new record you've made. And that varies. Some people do want to hear that and some people don't. And but this show was all about the hits. It was like, listen, don't be doing track 3 from album 4. We're not interested. Just give us your hits. And there's something great in that. I mean, I love singing the new songs and I love making new records. And I love it when I see in someone's eyes that they recognize the song and it's from the last few years rather than 30 years ago. But I also see the beauty in just, you know, so many things that if I go and see Fleetwood Mac, I think that's nostalgic. And I don't think they're a nostalgia act, but it is nostalgic. Do you know what I mean? Because you're reminded of all those great moments as a kid and growing up and borrowing your brothers and sisters' records and all of that. So
When you think back, Rick, I mean, first time around, 40 million records sold, and then you had many happy years of doing those kind of nostalgia shows and still making new music as well. But what was the moment when you thought, hang on a second, I'm back?
I don't actually have that sort of feeling, to be honest. I have moments of thinking, and this is not even like me, you know, self-deprecating or anything. It's just, I don't really feel I'm back in that sense because I think the white heat of pop music is for young people and older people won't like me saying that, but it is. And someone like myself, if you get let back in the back door to do a Glastonbury and to do some of the amazing things we've done in the last few years, I think that is very much trading on what you did all those years ago, and you just become, you're a tiny part of the massive wallpaper of music, you know. And I think I'm grateful for that. I really am. I don't ever poo-poo anything that comes my way in that respect, because I had Never Gonna Give You Up all those years ago. Then that started it all. That's why I got to play the Pyramid Stage at Glastonbury. I'm not fooling myself. It's not because of new music. So I kind of embrace both sides of it and say, I don't think an artist like myself, if I can even call myself that, does have a kind of genuine comeback, if you know what I mean. I think you just gradually filter back into what is the wallpaper of music, you know, and that's a beautiful place to be. Don't get me wrong, it really is. I think a comeback is for someone who hasn't done it for 3 or 4 years, not like 20 years later. You know what I mean?
What about Rick rolling? What part did Rick rolling play in that? And for those people that don't know about it, you describe what it is. I'm not going to do it. You tell
Okay,
us.
I'll do my best anyway. Yeah, it started such a long time ago now. It's like 15 years or something. But basically, when we all started, you know, sending links to video clips and this, that, and the other in an email, which is, you know, it's second nature now, but it was pretty new 15 years ago. Even YouTube was fairly new 15 years ago. You would send a link to somebody, they'd click on it thinking that they're going to see, you know, the FA Cup final, or, you know, some beautiful catwalk model doing something, or blah, blah, whatever they thought it was going to be. And they see a little bit of that, and then all of a sudden, boom, it clicks through to the video for Never Gonna Give You Up, and it's got that synth drum sort of intro to it usually, and off you go. That's the beginning of the song. And believe it or not, some people found that funny. You know, it has been, of course it has, because that song now has been used in so many different ways on the internet, and it's also found its little universe on the internet. It gets used in the craziest ways. It's not just Rickrolling anymore, it's all sorts. And obviously that means that song is in younger people's minds, maybe even a few hearts as well along the way, who knows. But I kind of think anything that gets your head above the parapet today has got to be something that works for you, whether it's an old song, whether it's, you know, an old video, whatever it is. I think it's just it has to help you in what you're doing today. It absolutely does. So
It's
I'm not
good for the royalties as well, Rick.
Yeah, I didn't write that. I wish I did. Believe me, I've wished many times over the years that I wrote that song, but I'll take it. Yeah, no, listen, it's a really weird thing. I think that the world is in a very different state than obviously when that song first came out, and it's in a very different place in terms of how people make a living from music, or do really well from music, or become, you know, really mega wealthy from music, and all the rest of it. It's all completely changed. Some people stream extremely well and make a living out of that, or do really well out of it. Like I say, some people don't stream that well, but they play live, and that's where they earn their living, and that's where, you know, it's such a mishmash and a mix-up of everything. So I kind of think you need a bit of everything, obviously, but the truth of it is, I think most people kind of almost seem to make an album now so that they can go on tour. And back in my day, you just toured to promote the album. You know what I mean? It was like we were going on tour to promote the album, and now it's totally the opposite way around. So it's kind of funny. But I just make records in my garage anyway. I've made 3 albums in my garage on my own. So I do it because I want to do it, and because somebody out there will let me do it, you know?
Yeah, you do things differently when it comes to making music and releasing music. You're your own boss in this stuff. Is that something that you learned from those days, going way back to Stock Aitken and Waterman?
I think I learned a lot from those guys, definitely. And I learned a lot in the sense that they were very workmanlike about it, but they were very talented, and they also knew that the reason that you write a great song, or the reason that some inspiration comes, is because you're in there for 10 or 12 hours a day. You don't go in there for an hour everyone when you want to, and they just come to you. You have to be in there plugging away at it. And I think that stuck with me a little bit, that it's the actual studio process is quite a working environment. It's not just, you know, frittering a bit of moments away and just thinking, oh, we'll come up with a hit. That's not the way it works. It's not digging ditches, of course it's not, but you have to put the hours in. And I think over the years I have put the hours in, and I've kind of learned how to write songs, and I've learned how to put them together and produce them. So when I go in my garage studio at home, I don't really think even about that I certainly didn't when I made 50, which is 7 years ago, and that's kind of what started the new music rolling for me. I made that record simply because I wanted to, and just to see what I could do at the age of 50. I only called it 50 as a bit of a giggle because Adele kept calling her records the age she made them. And I thought, I'll beat you to 50, love. You've got a long way till you get to 50. Thinking, well, no one's going to hear it anyway. No one's going to know that I've made a record called 50. But it did great. You know, it did really well. So yeah, so it's pretty. Yeah, I just do it for the joy of it, I think.
Rick, it feels like it's all been leading to this point, doesn't it? You know, all the experience that you've had. You're a brilliant showman on stage, and all the experience that you've kind of built down the years leading up to this point. But you clearly also still love what you do, and you saw that on stage at Glastonbury as well. Is this a moment, though, when just what you're talking about there in terms of the new music that you're making? We live in quite a dark world just now. Are you trying to write joyful songs? I mean, the songs you used to produce were really filled with joy for people. Is that the aim again this time because of where the world is?
Yeah, I don't know whether it's the aim, but obviously what the world's been through in the last few years, you know, we don't need to go into COVID again, but I mean, what I think that certainly made me think about different things. And I think I just feel as I'm getting older as well, and obviously that happens to everybody, you realise life is more precious because you've got less of it left. And I think to be honest, when I'm writing, I don't really go into my little studio thinking I want to write a song about this. I think I've done that once or twice, but I'm normally just noodling around. I actually like being in there. I like going and sitting at this old piano that I've got. I've got a bunch of guitars, and I like, you know, restringing them and fiddling about with them and all the rest of it. And I just like it. I'm still a kid in that respect of, you know, I got really lucky to actually be in a situation where I could make records professionally, but I also don't think I've ever lost that thing of, I'm going to go to a friend who has a studio literally after this interview, and I can't wait to see this new bit of gear he's bought. He's bought a new bit of equipment, and I can't wait to see it. I'm like, why? It's just a thing with knobs on that makes it, but it's you know, I haven't lost that, I think, and I think that's great. You know, I do get a bit down and a bit miserable like anybody else does when you watch the news, because it's like it's hard not to. It's really hard not to. But I also think that I have a tendency to write songs about love, because truth be told, you know, when you're on your deathbed or when you're on your whatever part of life where you're looking back, what's important is who has loved you and who you love. Everything else doesn't really matter.
Well said. Well, that takes us up nicely to your single. You're going to be in Scotland, right? You're going to be with us on the 27th of February at OVO in Glasgow, and you're playing the Transmit Festival, Glasgow Green, July 12th to the 14th. How are you feeling about it? What do you know about that?
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. We're going to be spending a bit more time in Scotland over the next years, because our daughter is marrying a chap from Glasgow as well. So I'm going to have to get my act together in terms of like knowing a bit more about Scottish culture and all the rest of it. Yeah, so that's exciting. But yeah, Glasgow, I mean, listen, I know everyone says that, oh, you know, Glasgow, Edinburgh, whatever town it is in Scotland, it's a great place to play. Everyone says that when they're on the radio doing an interview. But we have had quite a few giggles up there for sure. And yeah, I'm always looking forward to that. It's a good crowd. It always is, you know. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Have you met your daughter's fiance's parents yet? Is that all good?
I'm about to. Yeah, so we're looking forward to that. It's kind of crazy because our daughter lives in Denmark, and her fiance obviously lives in Denmark. That's where they met. But obviously he's from Glasgow, and she, you know, she's been living there about 11 years now in Copenhagen. So it's kind of been a bit unusual because obviously they're living in a different country. So, you know, the whole thing about families meeting, all the rest of it, it hasn't been the normal kind of, well, we'll just have a trip down the road. So, yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the wedding and everything. So
I was just checking if there was an Astley tartan to get you a kilt, but I don't think there is one. But
no, well, like, to be honest, this has been a bit of a thing that I've been talking to a few people about, and also my daughter's fiance a little bit as well. He's like, can a Sassenach wear a kilt at a Scottish wedding? That's what I need to know this, so I need some advice on it, Stephen, to be honest.
Rick Astley, 100%. You could wear a kilt anytime, anywhere.
All right.
And you can wear it on stage at Glasgow Green as well, so you can get double bubble from it at the wedding and at Glasgow Green.
I'll check with that. It's not only a one-time thing then. I'll check with my daughter whether she wants me to. Some guys can carry it off and some can't, Stephen. Simple.
You can carry it off. You can carry off a lilac suit at Glastonbury. You can carry off a kilt, for sure. Rick Astley, absolute pleasure to speak to you this morning. Thanks so much for your time. We'll see you in Scotland. And here's the brand new single from Rick. This is Driving Me.
I'm having trouble trying to sleep. I'm counting sheep but running out. As time ticks by, still I try. No rest for cross chops in my mind. On my own, here we go. My eyes feel like they're gonna bleed. Right up and bulging out my skull. My mouth is dry. My face is numb. Fucked up and spun out in my room. On my own, here we go. Set on overdrive. The clock is laughing in my face. A crooked spine. My senses dulled. That's the point of delirium. On my own, here we go. Feel like they're gonna bleed. Right up and bulging out my skull. My mouth is dry. Face is numb. Fucked up and spun out in my room. On my own, here we go.
A night at Blockbuster.
That was a great romance.
Yeah?
I'm not ashamed to say I cried at the end. But comedy's good. My friends say I'm a pretty funny guy.
Really?
So, you want to pick up some movies, get together later?
Do you want to get together with me tonight and have some fun? Here, arms, legs, abs, and buns. Call me when you catch your breath.
Come to Blockbuster Video. Check out our huge selection and pick up the Claudia Schiffer workout series. Make it a Blockbuster night.
Don't miss that. Wasn't Rick Astley great? Can he wear a kilt, do you think? Will we allow Rick Astley to wear a kilt at a wedding in Glasgow? I think so. What do you think? 80295 to text us this morning. Still to come. Same text number as well for your questions for Ask the GP. Dr. Poonam is back this morning. So any health issues that you've got that you've maybe not managed to get to your own GP at the moment, so something new that's cropped up or something that's been hanging around for a while, maybe you want a second opinion. Perhaps someone in the family has been talking to you about a health issue that they've got and you just want a bit more information, you want to understand more about it. No appointments necessary, no waiting list here. All you have to do is text 80295 and...
I went to the doctors. I said, "Hey doctor, how you doing?" I said, it didn't, and he went, like that. He knew right away what I was talking about.
Greg Hemphill, actor's been talking about using Viagra. This morning on the show, we're going to use that as the jumping off point to talk about impotence. It affects about half of men over the age of 40. Does it need its own menopause moment?
Well, what do we have here?
Mornings on BBC Radio Scotland.
Listen on BBC Sounds.
7:30 on a Thursday. We're about 40 minutes away from our Thursday health surgery. Every Thursday on the programme we give you free, unfettered access to a top health professional. Today is Ask the Doctor Day with our resident GP, Dr Poonam Krishan. She's here with me now, looking ahead to her surgery just after 11. Poonam, morning. Good to speak to you.
Good morning. Good to speak to you too.
Just picking up on that, we've got this discussion coming up just before 11 this morning about impotence in men and the difficulty getting men to open up and talk about it. You must have first-hand experience of this in the doctor's surgery, that difficult conversation. How does it go?
Yeah, I mean, it is. I think that a lot of men feel very embarrassed. It's unfortunately sometimes shame is carried through with that. And what I tend to find is that either men, so there's different patterns of consultation that will happen. You'll either have a man that will come in and maybe with something very insignificant. You know, I'll give you an example of, I've had this kind of discoloured toenail for the last 3 months. Could you have a look at it? Almost just to kind of gauge how comfortable they feel with the doctor. And especially as a female, 60% of the GP workforce is female. So often what they're trying to do is just kind of test the water and see, can they feel comfortable in that scenario? And usually then they go, actually, there was one other thing. Or it's usually the partner or the wife that will come in and say, look, I'm a little bit concerned, this has been happening. What can I do to help my husband come forward to speak to you? And I think what I want to say is, every part of your body is important. Every part of us has a function. And when it comes to something like erectile dysfunction, it can impact so many different parts of your life, your mental health, your emotional well-being, your relationships. It can have a knock-on effect on your confidence out in the world as well. So, nothing is ever too, awkward for a doctor. We are used to looking at these problems. There's lots of underlying causes that could be, the issue, which we can quite easily manage. The key is not to struggle in silence, is to come forward. And if you do feel, I don't want to speak to a female GP about it, you can request a male GP.
No need for it to be a taboo. That is for absolutely sure. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about this morning was measles and this concern about a spike in measles rates amid low MMR take-up in parts of Scotland. What's going on, Poonam?
Yeah, so last week, actually, the UK Health Security Agency declared a national incidence with regards to measles. And that's because since October last year, we've seen a huge rise in the cases of measles, which once upon a time we had massively under control. But we think that somewhere across the country, there's over 3.4 million kids under the age of 16 who are at risk. In Scotland, over the last few weeks, we were doing brilliantly. We still are in a good position compared to the rest of the UK, but there have been about 3 or 4 cases of measles. And the worry that we have is that measles is such a contagious infection. So I'll give you an example, that if you had a room of 20 kids who were unvaccinated, so that means that they were not protected against measles, and in came someone who was infected with the virus, that person would be able to infect up to 18 out of those 20 kids. That's how contagious it is. And it spreads really quickly through the air, through droplets, through coughing, through sneezing. So really what we're urging, and what I want everybody out there to listen to this message, is that please make sure that you are vaccinated. It can affect anyone of any age, but particularly children. There's lots of reasons for why people have not had the vaccines done, whether it's fear, whether it's through misinformation that they've, listened to. I think speak to a medical expert if you're concerned. There is no links with the MMR vaccine and autism. That was all false information. We have that backed up. But if your child has, for whatever reason, missed it, contact either your GP or via the NHS website and book an appointment. The first dose is always given when your child is about 12 to 13 months old, just after their first birthday, and it's free on the NHS. The second one's given just before school. Okay.
Thanks for that. We are back with you in, about 30 minutes' time, Poonam?
Yes.
So it's open surgery this morning. So any questions around coughs and colds, around infections, around maybe something that you've not quite got round to taking to your GP at the moment, or if you want a second opinion on something, or these things that have been dragging on for ages, and it just feels like it's never going to go away, Poonam's here to give you advice on it this morning. So get your questions in. It's 80295 to text us this morning, or you can give us a call. That is free. 08085 92 95 00.
Mornings with Stephen Jardine on BBC Radio Scotland.
Listen on BBC Sounds.
Coffee chain Costa has reported a drop in sales as consumers change behaviour because of the cost of living crisis. The average cost of a high street latte has increased to £3.25. Now, that happened late last year, leading to a rise in the number of people looking to try and just get their caffeine fix at home instead. So what exactly is the price of a cup of coffee made up of? Why the jump? And if you're making it at home, what's the most cost-effective way of doing it while still getting a great cup of Joe at the same time? Let's talk about this first with Sarah Capaldi. Sarah is co-owner of Parthenope Coffee Shop. Sarah, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Hi there. Hi, good morning.
Good to speak to you. Have your prices gone up in the last 12 months?
Yeah, we've actually had to put them up twice in the last 12 months. I think we started off, we were $2.75 for a coffee. We are now £3.10 for coffee.
What's going on? What's behind that?
So it's actually not the coffee itself. The coffee beans still cost the same. It's just kind of everything that goes with it. So your takeaway cups, labour, rent, electricity bills, everything else around me is going up. And coffee's kind of the one that seems to take the hit. It's kind of the thing you would have made, your average coffee shop would have made the most profit on. So I know people say, oh, the coffee shop's popping up all over the place. They can survive quite well because coffee did have quite a good markup, but obviously that's changed, and that's what I would rely on to kind of make a profit, if you know what I mean. On the food, we make everything ourselves. We use quite good produce. We're not really making that much profit on them, but your coffee is what would keep you afloat. It's quite a hard market at the moment. I know Glasgow City Council had lowered the threshold of business rates. So if your business rate was under £15,000, you could be exempt. You could apply to be exempt or have a lower amount to pay. That's gone from £15,000 to £12,000. So as you can imagine, loads of shop owners have taken on a shop saying, oh, that's great, we don't have business rates or low business rates. They've put that into their plan, and last year, without any notice, you've just been hit with this, with them lowering the threshold, and so people are going to have to magic this money out of somewhere, and coffee seems to be where it's coming from.
So it's a particular problem for the small operators, isn't it, rather than those big coffee high street brands that we all know. Are you reaching the stage, Sarah, where you're finding some customer resistance to the price of a cup of coffee?
Yeah, I mean, before I would kind of hold out the card machine and people would tap it without even knowing what they were paying. Now I can see people kind of looking at individual prices and thinking, oh, I'll just have a coffee or I'll just take a sandwich. And it's hard, you know, because we're kind of a neighbourhood coffee shop. We're not on a high street. We don't have loads of footfall, so it's like the same people we see every single day. And it's really hard because you actually care about your customers, and I hate passing the price on to them because I know they're in the same boat as me. And it's like everything, just money is coming out, bills and things are coming out my ears. And I mean, I really don't think in 2024 we should really be like, oh, can I afford a coffee? Everyone should be able to, the majority of people should be able to have a coffee every day. But, you know, if a coffee, by the time you've added your oat milk and your syrups and all this, you're going to be about £3.50. So just do people have £3.50 a day to spend on coffee? I mean, I probably don't. And I know if I didn't have my own business and I wasn't working in a coffee shop, I would probably think, God, these guys must be rolling in at £3.50 a coffee. You know, you just kind of, you don't realise what there is behind it.
Yeah, once you lift the lid, if you don't mind me putting it that way, you start to realise what is actually going on in there.
I honestly wouldn't believe it.
Stay with me, Sarah. I want to talk a bit about how this is kind of what lies behind this. Chris Sandlin is Marketing and Sales Coordinator at Deer Green Coffee Roasters. Chris, good morning.
Morning, hi.
Is it a bit of a perfect storm right now in terms of the cost of coffee with everything that goes into it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're a coffee roastery, so what we are mostly purchasing is green coffee to sell, for the most part, for wholesale. So what we're seeing is a lot of like geopolitical situations which are causing an increase in the green coffee price. Alongside that as well, we're seeing sort of like climate change affect crops, which also leads to an increase in green coffee prices. And for the most part, a lot of coffee roasteries will try to absorb these costs before putting the price up to the end customer. But yeah, it's a melting pot of many different things that feed into the one thing.
As Sarah was saying, what she's starting to see is a bit of customer resistance now. You know, perhaps more people choosing to have their coffees at home rather than having them out of home on the high street. Are you going to try and tap into that market of just people who want a good coffee, but they want to actually have it at home?
Yeah, so a lot of our, we've seen really since the pandemic a real growth in the sort of business to consumer side of our business. I think the coffee at home market was accelerated at a rapid pace because of the pandemic. People can actually get out and go enjoy their coffee in their favourite coffee shop. And a lot of people became hyper-obsessed with recreating that at home, the perfect cup.
So talk us through how you do that. Somebody listening to this right now thinking, do you know what? Yeah, I'm sick of paying high street coffee prices. I want to try and get the same experience at home. How do you do that?
Got a couple of options. The most cost-effective and user-friendly way is to buy yourself a nice, £5 V60 brewer and a half-decent coffee grinder, and make sure you're buying ethically sourced coffee from an independent. If you can, always support independents because they'll have the supply chains and more ethical supply chains. You can also brew espresso at home. However, the outlay to buy that equipment can be astronomical if you want to do it well.
But these little stovetop coffee pots, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, so you've got pour over, you've got stovetop. I mean, I could list you 10, 15 different ways to make coffee at home. That once you go down that rabbit hole, it's endless possibilities.
And you're the expert, Chris. In a blind tasting, a well-made cup of coffee at home or one from a high street chain, could you tell the difference?
Yes. Without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, and you'd say the homemade ones are often better if people go about doing it the right way and have got the right kit.
Yeah, I mean, if you're the sort of person who has become what we would call like a hobbyist barista, then yes, you can definitely recreate that. However, it's not easy. It takes a lot of time, a lot of practice, a lot of perseverance to get the best cup at home. And a lot of the more independent coffee shops in Glasgow will be making incredible coffee that will be very hard to recreate at home.
What have you got at home? Are you sick of coffee when you get home? Do you drink tea when you get home?
Well, to be honest with you, the amount of coffee we drink in the roastery every day, by the time it gets to the weekend, I'm on a bit of a detox. But,
you got to sleep sometime, haven't you?
Exactly.
Chris, a pleasure to speak to you this morning. Thanks for your time. Chris Sandlin there from Deer Green Coffee Roasters, and we heard from Sarah Capaldi, co-founder of Partenope Coffee Shop before that. What do you think? 80295, if you want to text us, 10:44 on a Thursday morning. It's BBC Radio Scotland.
There are great new shows for kids from the newest member of the Disney family, ABC. Take a look.
This is your TV, ABC.
Get ready for the Mighty Ducks to jump into gear.
Affirmative.
They're hockey-playing ducks.
Deploy.
And full-time crime fighters. Punch it! Defending the Earth from one bad dude.
Roast them. We're gonna take out Draconis.
Their battles on and off the ice.
That ought to get his attention.
Make them the toughest ducks you'll ever see.
That's our target.
Disney's Mighty Ducks. Join them Saturdays on ABC, along with brand spanking new Doug and Gargoyles, the Goliath Chronicles, on ABC Saturday mornings. This is your TV, ABC.
Good luck, Scotland. Still to come on the programme this morning. Up next, in fact, we're going to talk about male impotence. It affects about half of men over the age of 40. Does it need a menopause moment as well? And we heard from Dr. Poonam a little bit earlier on of just the embarrassment, the taboo around it as well when she speaks to people in her surgery about it. She's here to take your questions on general health inquiries after 11 this morning. No need for an appointment here. If you've got a question for the GP, just text us 80295, or better still, give us a call. That's free, 08085 92 95 00.
Okay, give it up for...
Mornings on BBC Radio Scotland.
Listen on BBC Sounds.
10:45 on a Thursday morning. Comedian Greg Hemphill has been applauded for his honesty, speaking about his impotence with his wife Julie Wilson-Nimmo as part of a show on BBC Scotland.
I'll be absolutely honest with you. I've admired your honesty up until now when you've been talking about the menopause and stuff like that.
My libido.
And I think the male equivalent of that truly is... I can't really put it into words because I get too mortified.
Just say it.
The male equivalent of the menopause is that.
Oh, I was going to be getting a demo here. Being in your 50s and stuff like that, these things come up. That was the wrong thing to say.
I remember the first time I ever happened across this wonder drug, Viagra, and it was magic.
Although I remember feeling a bit hurt, like, oh no, guy doesn't fancy me anymore. And I think women do think that when the Viagra packet comes out and you're like, oh, but actually getting amongst it.
I've got plenty to say about this goddamn thing. I went to the doctors. I said, hey doctor, how you doing? I said, so I was having sex last night, and it didn't, and he went, like that. He knew right away what I was talking about. And I think in that moment I stumbled into the great unsaid between men and women. And I'm here to tell you, get the helping hand.
As long as people don't think we're flipping. Remember years ago, Sting and his wife totally were doing that.
Oh.
We're not that.
We're the opposite of that. They were like, breathe. I'm saying go to the chemist and buy a pill.
Greg Hemphill and Julie there. We don't talk about this stuff, though, do we? Is it the last taboo as far as men's health is concerned? According to the NHS, approximately half of men between the ages of 40 and 70 have erectile dysfunction. That moves to 7 in 10 over the age of 70. So do we need to see a change in how we talk about this? Does it need its own menopause moment? And if you've got experience around this, I'd love to talk to you about it this morning, how it's affected you. Don't be shy. Get in touch, text 80295 or call. It's free, 08085 92 95 00. Dr. Janine David is a GP and men's health specialist. Janine, good morning.
Good morning.
Just give us the basics on this first. What is erectile dysfunction?
Okay, so erectile dysfunction is when the penis doesn't get erect enough for sexual intercourse. It may get erect enough to start sexual intercourse, but then when you're having intercourse, it may become more, we say the word flaccid, so floppy, or could be another word for it, whilst you're mid-intercourse and not last long enough to complete it. So there's varying degrees of it, but it's just really lack of hardness for intercourse.
And why does it happen? What's going on in the male body?
Okay, there's lots of reasons why it can happen. So you could have psychological reasons, which is more common in the younger age group, and we're seeing more of this. So it can be associated with anxiety, depression, that sort of thing. So you've got that side of things, but then you've got physical causes. And this is why it's really important to talk to your doctor about it, because I always say the way to a man's heart is through his penis, and it really to remember that, because erection problems can be heart disease really until proven otherwise. So it's really important to get checked out. So it could be blockages of the arteries in the penis, because the arteries in the penis are much smaller than the arteries in the heart, and they will block first. So that's a major cause and an important one. Diabetes, too, is a really important cause. People can present with erectile dysfunction, and it can be the first presentation of diabetes. So you'd need that checked out. So there's sort of the major important causes. The other one would be testosterone deficiency, hormonal causes. Lots of men have got problems with their hormones, especially as they get older. The testosterone will decrease. So it's not quite the same as women who have... All women will have a menopause. Not all men will lose their testosterone, but it does decrease as you get older, and this can be a major cause of erection problems. Also, there's other slightly rarer causes, such as problems with the spine, nerves, accidents, that sort of things. And lots of drugs can cause erection problems. So doctors cause it by giving people drugs and not all the time warn patients about it.
We're talking about a lot of men here, Janine. Approximately half of men between the ages of 40 and 70. Why is it so rarely discussed?
Yeah, I think this is sort of multifactorial, and you're right, half of men, and in some studies it's been up to 70%, and this is probably because men don't talk about it enough and don't admit to it in surveys even. I think it's because men still feel that being unwell is not masculine in any way, and even more so when it's sex because they think, they've lost their masculinity, they lose self-esteem. They don't like to talk about it. So men don't come to the doctors anyway, but certainly not about sexual problems. So it's partly because men don't want to talk about it. And then, so I'm so grateful for Greg. He's doing a great job putting it out there. And then the other thing is because I think when they come to see us, we're not very good at talking about sex as medics as well. So we need to up our game and we need to ask patients about it. So if we're seeing patients perhaps in diabetic clinic or if they're coming in talking about cholesterol, this sort of thing, this is where we need to be asking men about erection problems, asking them, could it be affecting them? We know that 80% of men would want to be asked about it, but only 20% would actually volunteer it. So part of the onus, I think, is on doctors to ask men about sexual problems as well.
What help is available, Janine, when people come to see you?
So there is lots of help available. So if you've got a psychological issue, there's psychosexual therapists, we've got online counsellors, we've got online apps that can help with all of that, relaxation techniques, all that sort of thing. And we can advise about lifestyle advice because that's really important as well. Cutting out smoking, drinking, exercising, all helps with erections. So that's sort of that side of things. But then we've got lots of other options. There's stuff you can buy over the counter. There's a cream called Eroxon you can use. Then you're moving on from that. There's pills such as the Viagra type pills, and there's a couple of types of them. There's ones that you take just when you need it, ones that you can take every day. Then if you can't take the pills for whatever reason, there's vacuum therapy. So it's it almost looks like a clear water bottle you put over the penis and you pump it up and that creates a mechanical erection and you have a ring at the base, and that can be really helpful for some people. There's little pellets that you can put down the end of the penis, which sounds horrific, but it's not actually that bad, and that can help. And then you move on to things like injections, which sometimes freaks people out, but they're very small, they're very thin. A lot of men get on really well with them. And then after that, you've got penile implants. So there are lots of options and ways of exploring it. And half the time, just talking about it can help it because it alleviates some of the anxiety associated with it.
We'll do some more of that now. Janine, thanks for your time. Here's Graham Watts, who's a psychotherapist on this morning as well. Graham, hi, morning.
Good morning.
Talking about this is vital, especially inside relationships. What impact can it have on couples and on relationships?
Right. Well, it's a good question, and it's one that comes up regularly. Not so much just erectile dysfunction, but the sex life of a couple, and it can cover a whole lot of bases. As Janine was saying, it's a very complex issue. So the first thing I'd be saying is, have you been medically checked? But what I would say is that within couples, what the strange thing was, men feel very ashamed or embarrassed about it, and women don't seem to. I'm talking about a heterosexual couple here. They don't seem to have the same emphasis. They're more about the intimacy. They think that there's something wrong in the relationship. Perhaps there's another person in the relationship, or any number of things that can come out. And what really matters is communication. And so if couples can communicate, where it can be difficult is if perhaps someone's trying to get pregnant and they think that their partner doesn't want a baby. Any number of reasons, Stephen, can trigger difficulties in that area. So the problem is, Janine touched on it there, we live in a society that is completely surrounded by sex. Every time you turn on the TV, every time you look at a billboard, and yet it's one of the things that we don't talk about with one another.
And especially within a relationship, if something is going wrong for the male partner there, they may try and hide it or deal with it by going to the GP without actually sitting down and saying, let's have a chat about this because this isn't working for me right now. And you would say openness is the key to all of this.
100%, Stephen. What you need in any relationship is good communication. That works right across the board. If you can be open with your partner and say, "Listen, I'm struggling a wee bit here. It's not your fault, I don't think, but I think this is to do with me." Then what can then happen is if they don't talk about it, and for instance they lose an erection during intercourse, the next time that they go to have intercourse, what you can deal with a thing called state and context dependent memory, so that when you're in that situation again, what comes back to your mind is, oh my God, I hope this doesn't happen again. That increases your stress levels, which is far more likely to create the same effect. So it can then become an ongoing problem just through the stress of worrying that it's actually going to happen.
And for a partner, it's no reflection on them that you're taking Viagra. It's a way of dealing with a situation that you've got. It's not saying that you fancy them less or you're less attracted to them than you used to be. It's just a simple physical fact.
Exactly. That's this. I mean, there can be numerous, when you start to delve a wee bit deeper, there can be other reasons why people and couples lose their sex drive or their attraction to one another. That's fine. We can deal with that. But if it's going from a fairly healthy sex life straight through to I'm losing my erection all the time, then there's probably, first of all, the medics. Then secondly, let's look at what is it that's happening. How can we rectify it? Should we try Viagra or any number of the creams that Janine was mentioning? So it's moving the couple into a space where they're happy and confident to talk about it. One of the things that I often, if you like, prescribe for couples is intimacy exercises. And I ask them not to have sex. And what we'll ask them to do is bath each other, have a nice meal, then just spend the evening touching, being close to one another, holding each other. And the strange paradox of that is sometimes they've come back and said, oh, we couldn't help it, because it's almost like don't walk on the grass. So there's things that couples can do together that can bring them closer. Talking is one of them, and intimacy is the other. And that, hopefully, is what sex grows out of, rather than it just being this kind of macho style, right, I'm ready at any moment.
Physical act. Graham, stay right there. Here's Michael Conroy joining our discussion as well. Michael's founder of the organisation Men at Work. Michael, morning.
Hi, how you doing?
This is a discussion that you just do not hear anywhere really these days, do you? Why do you think the stigma still surrounds men's erectile dysfunction? What's going on in your view?
Well, there's a huge amount going on, and I've really learned a lot from Janine there, and from your previous speaker just then. And it's great that you're having this discussion. But it is true that it's almost it's taboo, it's stigmatised. I think probably because our deep cultural messages about what is a man is that he's sexually potent, and that comes up a lot in the work that I have with teachers, youth workers, social workers, about the ideas that boys have. And this is nothing new. This is thousands of years old, isn't it? When we think about, even our history of kings and queens and about being able to produce children or produce sons as a sign of your, manliness. It cuts across all sorts of cultures. And I think the fact that it is common to all human cultures, that is one of the reasons that it's not talked about. If it was just something that happened to a particular group, we'd probably hear about it all day long. But this is the kind of thing that can happen to any man. And I think that fear of being seen as less than a man or unmanly or unmasculine, however you want to say it, is very closely connected with shame.
She said I'm 21, I said I'm 55, old enough to be your daddy, and that's no lie. She said nothing gets old but money, and age is just a number. Tonight I'm gonna let you feel the fire from down under. You need a man about 21 years old. She said, I got a young body, daddy, but I got a old soul. She said, I'm looking for a man that could truly be trusted. Someone that can lick the bowl and still cut the mustard. Little girl, I think I know what you're after. bartender, glass of Chevy's for the lady. And somebody give me a Viagra. She walked over to the jukebox and that dress was fitting tight. I said, play that one by Billy Ray Charles, you know, partying all night. She didn't even know it was me. And when she moved and grooved, I could feel my pressure rise. Baby had a little bitty waist and some big old thighs. I said, sugar, where did you get all that you got? I can see that you and I are gonna be wrapped up in a knot, y'all. She said, I'm looking for a man that could truly be trusted. Someone that can lick the bowl and still cut the mustard. I said, little girl, I think I know what you're after. Bartender, a glass of Chevy's for the lady. And somebody give me Viagra. I took baby home with me, cause I was ready for that treat. And when I came out of the bathroom, she was fast asleep. I said, wake up, little girl, and give me what you promised. She said, I think I drank too much, Daddy. I feel like I wanna vomit. She said, wait a minute, baby, it'll be alright in the morning. And then she rolled over on her back and started snoring. Here she is all laid out and looking so fine. And here I am sweating like the next pig in line. How could this night turn into such a disaster? I should have drank the Chevy's, y'all, and gave the little girl the Viagra. Man, I should have let this little girl go home earlier, you know. But that's what I get, you know. I should have been with somebody my own age, cause what had happened was cause I got women's waiting to see me. You know what I'm saying? But I wasted all this time this night, all this time on this little young girl. I could have been with somebody, I could be rolling right now. I could be having big fun. You know what I'm saying? I could be doing it like this, doing it like that, and doing it like this, and doing it like that. You know what I'm saying? But yet still I wasted this whole night. Somebody need to really give me a drink. I think I need some Chevy's. Anybody got any Chevy's in here? Pass it on down, man. I ain't gonna lie, I still need that Viagra though. Anybody got it? What a night.
But what I do know is that I took a swing from the overhang. The last bit of protection that I'd put into the rock to hold the rope came away. I swung and hit the ground and woke up 3 or 4 days later in hospital.
In about 30 minutes, the remarkable story of Olympic gold medalist, mountaineer and adventurer Karen Dark, and as an airline starts a Grannies Go Free campaign. What are the do's and don'ts when it comes to holidaying with the grandparents?
All the conversations that matter.
Mornings with Stephen Jardine on BBC Radio Scotland.
This
Thursday morning. It's time for our weekly health surgery. Today, it's your chance to ask the doctor. Our resident GP, Dr. Poonam Krishan, is here to answer all your health-related queries. Get them in now. Text 80295 or give us a call. That's free, 08085 92 95 00. Just before we crack on with that, Poonam, this week we learned that England is to follow the example of Scotland to introduce a pharmacy-first approach for patients. We've been doing that for a while up here. How has it been working and what difference does it make?
Yeah, actually, Scotland's Pharmacy First Plus scheme was actually launched in 2020, and it's been used as the model for England. It's brilliant. I think that as a GP, I want to be spending more of my time dealing with really complex acute medical problems. But unfortunately, GPs across the country are spending a lot of time dealing with minor ailments, which could very easily be, dealt with by our colleagues, pharmacists who are fantastic, not just in medication and the dispensing of medication, but, they are highly skilled to be able to manage some of these minor ailments. So from now in England, they'll be following what we have up here. Pharmacists will be able to see people on a walk-in basis to treat 7 common problems. So there's things like sore throats, earaches, sinusitis, rashes such as impetigo and shingles, as well as infected bites and uncomplicated urinary tract infections. So pharmacists will be able to assess, basically deem, do you need an antibiotic? Do you need pain relief? What is the best course of action? But if they also find that during that consultation there's some worrying red flags, or that indeed the patient needs to see their GP, then they will either ask the person to do that or they can contact the GP themselves. So I think it's a great service.
And your receptionists will help signpost on this stuff. But when should people go to a pharmacy and when should they go to a GP, Poonam?
Yeah, so I think if you are, you've come down with something, perhaps you're feeling a little bit under the weather, but you yourself don't feel so unwell that you think, actually, the doctor doesn't need, do I really need to see the doctor? I think it's always important to ask that question to yourself. But as I said, some of these things like a sore throat or a sore ear, you really don't need to see a GP or a doctor for that, nor do you need to go to NHS 24. And unfortunately, sometimes people, and I get that there's so many frustrations in accessing general practice at the moment because we are totally busy. But, that's the time to go, well, actually, shall I just pop into my pharmacy? And the thing is that most of us live closer to a pharmacy than we do to our GP practices. So pop in, have a chat with your pharmacist. And at that point, if they think actually this isn't within a remit, you do need to speak to your GP, then they will direct you accordingly.
Yeah, I was in the pharmacist the other day, came back from holiday with a bug, went to see them, and they were brilliant and dealt with it, actually. So,
They're
yeah,
fantastic.
absolutely.
We'd be lost without our pharmacists.
Indeed. Right, let's get into these questions for you this morning. 08085 92 95 00 if you want to give us a call. Graham is first this morning. He's in Glasgow. And this goes back to what we were talking about in the programme about half an hour ago, in fact. I'm so glad you called, Graham. Good morning.
Good morning, Stephen. Good morning, Doctor.
Morning. What's your question?
Good morning.
So, what it is, I've suffered from erectile dysfunction now for about 5-6 years. Actually came upon me after I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Now, I take the usual diabetes tablets, metformin, things like that. I knows all about them. Diabetes is quite well under control. Unfortunately, the erectile dysfunction isn't under control in any way, shape or form. And I went through Viagra, taken up to 100 milligrams, which did work at first. Stopped working, back to the same position. Then I went on to Tyroleaf, Cilia, and that was 20 milligram. Even doubled that to 40, no reaction. I then was put on the cream to try, but couldn't use the cream. But although I did use it a couple of times, again, it wasn't very successful. The cream is quite stingy. If any man's ever used it or whatever, and I'm sure again the doctor knows what I'm talking about. So I'm a wee bit of an impasse at the moment. I went to urology up in Glasgow Royal Infirmary and spoke to the lady there, and she suggested a pump or injections. I think injections kind of threw me a little bit because I thought the cream really would be very much similar to it. Again, I don't have any experience of it. So I tried the pump situation. Yeah, the pump worked for a short time, but again, whether it's psychological or not, it worked for maybe a couple of minutes, and then just failed during sex again. The erection just failed again. I'm just in a new relationship. It's no difficult because my girlfriend's quite supportive. So I've had a bit of stress in my life and things like that. Only had one partner my whole life who committed suicide 10 years ago. So whether that's got something to do with it, I don't know. It's just very, very strange.
Yeah. Well, firstly, thank you so much for sharing that with us. You know, it's not easy to talk about these things, but I think that what you're doing is really normalising that, you know, this is a problem that is probably affecting lots of people out there. I wanted to just quickly ask, did you have the problem with erectile dysfunction before you were diagnosed with your diabetes, or is it something that's happened since?
No, it's definitely connected to the diabetes.
Yeah.
Nothing. I mean, sexually everything was fine before that.
Yeah. Because certainly high blood sugars, especially over a long period of time, you know, as we were hearing earlier, it can damage the nerves and blood vessels around the penile area and can cause the problems that way. But then, of course, some of the medication that you mentioned there, for example, metformin is associated with a reduction in your testosterone levels and therefore can cause, as a side effect, erectile dysfunction in many men. So it is, I think that there's quite a lot that you've said there, whether it's the diabetes, which thankfully you're saying it is well controlled at the moment, whether the diabetes is also playing a part, whether the medication that you're on for that, so metformin, etc., for example, could be changed. We've got lots of different types of treatments that we can use to manage type 2 diabetes. So maybe that's something that would be worth considering and chatting to your GP about if there's scope to do that. And of course, you are under the experts there with urology. You have tried a whole load of different medications. Sometimes you can try a combination as well. But something that's really kind of struck me is when you've said about, you know, the trauma that you've been through, and there's quite a lot of stress is there. And our mental health is so hugely linked to our sex drive, to our libido, and how we perform when we're having intercourse. So I don't know whether you would be open to a conversation with your doctor. I would certainly want to speak to you about referring you for cognitive behavioural therapy, so CBT, just to try and open up some of these deep-rooted traumatic events that have taken place in your life and seeing whether we can actually help you move on from there. And I think this holistic combination approach is probably what will help improve things. It will improve. I think it's just joining the dots together to get you the support that you need.
Yeah, I mean, I've been through the mental health situation, obviously, with my wife taking her own life. I'm 61 now. Now, whether it's an age thing as well, I kind of put down the age at the start, but as I said, I've never had that problem before. So, moving forward, I was going to ask the doctor about that to maybe change my medication, and that's now with the diabetes. So that's definitely. He did a testosterone test as well, and that came back actually normal. It's slightly low because of my medication, he says, but nothing to really worry about. So again, going forward, it's just a matter of speeding. And can I just say,
Oh, I think we may have lost Graham just at the point where he wanted to share something with us there. That's such a shame, actually. But do you know what? I tell you, he might not want this title, but I think we should make him Scotland's male impotence czar, because he spoke so well about that.
So beautifully and articulately,
Yeah, and you were terrific in your help as well, Poonam. So, Graham, I hope that did help, and thank you very much indeed for your call. 08085 92 95 00 for your calls, or 80295 if you want to text us. Let's move on. Something different this morning from Steve. Steve's next this morning. Morning, Steve.
Hi.
Hey, morning. What's your question for Poonam?
Well, at the beginning of the year, I went to a doctor with minor symptoms, and I had a PSA test, and it came back with a level of 11.2, and I was summoned in really urgently to the doctor's surgery and sent for a scan, which I had about 10 days ago. Since then, I've heard nothing, and I was surprised that there seemed to be an incredible degree of urgency initially, and yet now I'm waiting for the results of this scan. So I was wondering, how soon should I get back in touch with my GP, and what can I expect to hear regarding future treatment?
Okay, can I ask, were you having this blood test done for your PSA as a routine thing, or because you've developed some symptoms?
No, I had minor sort of urinary problems.
Okay.
And I've heard on television you should get tested for PSA, so I mentioned it when I was seeing the doctor about another matter.
Yeah, you absolutely did the right thing. And that was earlier this year, you said?
Yes, the beginning of January.
Wow, right, okay. And from then, you've only just had the scan 10 days ago?
Yes.
Okay, and how are your symptoms at the moment? Have they got worse over this period of time?
No. I don't really have symptoms as such. It's a very minor issue with my, it's a slight urgency to urinate, but not in any way a problem.
Okay.
But yeah.
And did you have a physical examination as well? Normally, what we do when somebody comes in for the PSA blood test.
Yes. I was tested for umpteen things, all of which came back negative. And I'm generally in very good health. I still go ill water and so on.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's brilliant. So you said a lot of good things there. You've not told me of any red flag symptoms that would concern me. The PSA blood test, for any man that's listening at the moment, is in part a non-specific test, in that just because it comes back high doesn't mean that it is going to be something like prostate cancer. But if it does come back high, it leaves us in that territory of we do need to investigate just to be sure that the prostate is in fact healthy. So you have had the scan. It was 10 days ago. Usually, unless it's an absolute urgent result, we can expect the result to come back to the practice within about 2 to 3 weeks. So I think if you haven't heard from your surgery by the end of next week, I would probably chase that up. And depending on what that result shows, your GP at that point will consider whether you do need a referral for a further examination with a urologist, which would be in part with a camera test. But I think at the moment it's been 10 days, maybe just give a call next week to chase that up.
Okay, thank you.
Does that sound okay?
Yes, indeed. That's excellent. Thanks very much.
Steve,
okay, take care.
Good luck. Always anxious when these things are underway, but hopefully...
it's the worst, isn't it?
Yeah, just waiting, but hopefully everything okay. Jump back into the text for you this morning. Poonam, is there a test to find out if you have rheumatoid arthritis?
Okay, so we don't know the context of this, but it's a very good question. Rheumatoid arthritis, for anyone that doesn't know, it's a condition that affects the joints of the body. You can get a lot of stiffness and a lot of inflammation within them, and usually it affects both sides. So typically the hands, the feet. With regards to investigations, it's a multi-pronged approach. We would take a history to find out how long the symptoms have been going on, at what point of the day the symptoms are severe. We would examine the joints, and then we would do some blood tests. This would include a whole host of things like your blood count. We check your inflammatory markers. So they give us an indication if your inflammatory markers come back quite high. We're more thinking of an inflammatory type picture. There are a couple of blood tests that we do check that aren't specific but do give us a good indication. One is called the rheumatoid factor, and the other one is called an anti-CCP antibody. And both of these are typically higher in those that have got some form of rheumatoid process going on. So if you are going to your GP, you might hear these two will be the ones that your GP will want to test.
Interesting,
we take
right.
it from there.
Another one here. I'm being kept awake all night with painful gout in my big toe at the moment. That can be so sore.
It's horrible.
What's the best treatment for this? And is this a sign of something more serious going on?
Yeah. Okay, so gout, it's another type of arthritis, but unlike rheumatoid, which causes multiple joints to be affected, in gout you typically get one joint that becomes very acutely, very suddenly, severely painful. It becomes red hot, tender. Common joints are things like the knee or the big toe. And in terms of treatment, a lot of it is about anti-inflammatories, is what we tend to use. Ibuprofen or naproxen, if you're able to tolerate those. If that doesn't work, and you're having recurrent episodes, we may even use steroids, which can give that anti-inflammatory effect, or even a steroid injection into the joint. The key is making sure that lifestyle-wise you're also taking care to keep yourself really hydrated, that you're not or very much moderating alcohol, because these can also increase the production of those uric acid crystals. That is the problem. And if you are having more than 2 to 3 episodes in a year, we would use uric acid lowering medications, a common one being allopurinol, to treat that.
And one more this morning, Poonam. Heard on the news a bit earlier about the situation in Aberdeen, hemochromatosis. Can you summarise what's going on? Also, if you had blood tests done, is that enough? Is it just high ferret levels involved in all of this? Thank you. Dig into this for us.
Okay, so hemochromatosis has been in the news recently. It's an inherited condition, so if you are more genetically predisposed to get this, and it's when you have high iron levels in the body, which slowly builds up over years, so you end up with an iron overload situation, and that can cause really, awful, unpleasant symptoms. Common ones being feeling excessively fatigued. There might be weakness or joint pains. You might find, it can actually, it's a cause for erectile dysfunction as well that we've been chatting about this morning, and particularly in women, it can come on after the menopause, causing things like, brain fog, mood swings, anxiety, and because you can hear that the symptoms are quite vague, it can be difficult to pinpoint. Now, in the news recently, it has been that people that are from sort of Scottish or Irish ancestry, they are actually genetically more at risk of having hemochromatosis. So there is a push in the north of Scotland for people to get screened to see if they've got this gene. So if you are in that part of Scotland, then you will be notified from your health board or from your GP practice to come in for this genetic screening. However, if you identify with any of these symptoms or have heard somebody in your family, whether it was a grandparent or parent who talked about, high levels of iron, then it's worthwhile getting that test done, which is very easy. We can do that at the GP practice.
Oh, Poonam, that's been busy this morning. I prescribed
It's been a busy morning, hasn't it?
a cup of tea for you, and since it's the
Thank
1st
you.
of February, you can have a biscuit as well. How does that sound?
Oh, lovely. Spoiled.
We're in. Poonam, thanks so much for your time. Back with us again soon on a Thursday. Dr. Poonam Krishan, our resident GP. We're at 11:27 now on a Thursday morning. It's BBC Radio Scotland.
You can't walk his walk,
And that's the bottom line. Because Stone Cold said so.
but you can wear his shirt. The Stone Cold Steve Austin t-shirt. 316 appears on the front and a skull is on the back with Stone Cold etched in the forehead. Some people will go to desperate lengths to possess one of these shirts. All you have to do is call 815-734-1161 or send a check or money order to the address on your screen. And that's the bottom line. So call now.
They're back. Don't miss that. Still to come with me, though, this morning.
But what I do know is that I took a swing from the overhang. The last bit of protection that I'd put into the rock to hold the rope came away. I swung and hit the ground and woke up 3 or 4 days later in hospital.
Coming soon, the remarkable story of Olympic gold medalist, mountaineer and adventurer Karen Dark. Don't miss that. And as an airline starts a Granny's Fly Free campaign, what are the do's and don'ts of holidaying with grandparents? If you've gone on a 3-generation holiday, how did it work out for you? Text 80295.
Mornings with Stephen Jardine on BBC Radio Scotland.
Listen on BBC Sounds.
Almost 11:30 with Stephen Jardine. I'm here until 12. Then it's Lunchtime Live. Hayley Miller's on the show today. Hayley, hi. What's coming up?
Hi there, Stephen. Yes, well, we'll bring you right up to date with what's been happening at the UK COVID inquiry this morning. The Scottish Secretary Alistair Jack has been giving evidence, and some very interesting lines from him today. He said that Nicola Sturgeon could cry from one eye if she wanted in response to her emotional response to the performance at the inquiry yesterday. So he, very interesting sort of view that he's taking in that today. We'll be talking about that evidence. We'll also be taking First Minister's questions live because the inquiry, of course, has been really the top of the political agenda all week. So we'll get more reaction to that. Elsewhere, we'll have the latest on these London acid attacks. Police say now that a 3-year-old girl and her mother suffered potentially life-changing injuries as a result of this corrosive substance thrown at them in London last night. So we'll have the latest on that. We will also keep you up to date with the search for the missing monkey from the Highland Wildlife Park. We've been speaking to someone from the park who has some possibly hopeful news, so stay tuned for that. And also we'll have the story of Lionel Messi's first Barcelona contract, which is going to be auctioned at Bonhams in London. Apparently, the contract was signed on a napkin. Not quite sure how that came about. But anyway, we'll see how much that napkin is likely to fetch when it comes up for auction. All of that and more with Vary and myself from 12.
Thanks, Hayley. We'll look forward to it. Back to the music now. This Thursday morning, BBC Radio Scotland from 19... dark. It was a life-changing accident which left her confined to a wheelchair. Despite that, Karen went on to win